The Sunday school lesson for June 1st, 2025 is Learn from Good Examples. Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1 through 2 and verses 4 through 13. Welcome, viewers and subscribers, to my channel, The Backstory and More. If you are new here, please know that this is an audio reading of the lesson. Please subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Thank you so much for all that you do to help this channel grow one viewer and one subscriber at a time. Faith defined. Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1 through 2. Hebrews 11 and 1 is one of the most familiar Bible verses because it answers an important question. What is faith? The verse consists of two descriptive phrases. The second phrase further explains the first. The word translated as substance can refer to an objective reality or to a strong confidence in something. Perhaps the two senses can be combined. Biblical faith is confidence in something objectively true. It is not some ethereal, unfounded feeling, as the world sometimes understands the idea of faith. The biblical idea of hope is also different from the world's idea of a desperate, against all odds clinging to the notion that things might turn out all right. The believer's hope is built on the firm foundation of the promises of God and his redeeming purpose. This biblical view of hope is as certain as God is trustworthy and good. The word evidence can refer to strong convictions that arise in the presence of proof. People of faith believe in the unseen spiritual realities as much as if they were visible to the eye. These spiritual realities are of eternal value, things that make life worth living. Elders here refers to his Jewish readers, his Old Testament ancestors. Additionally, the author of Hebrews was almost certainly a Christian of Jewish ancestry himself. Faith was the means by which these ancestors obtained a good report or were declared righteous in God's sight and thus were the recipients of God's approval. Faith illustrated. Hebrews chapter 11, verses 4 through 13. Abel, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4. The list of people of faith proceeds chronologically. The first example goes back to the son of Adam, the first man. In Genesis chapter 4, verses 2 through 7, Abel, a shepherd, offered a sacrifice of one of the firstborn of his flock, even the choicest meat. For this reason, the Lord looked with favor on this sacrifice. God did not look with favor on Cain's offering, for he merely offered some of his crops, not his best. The emphasis of Hebrews is that Abel offered his sacrifice by faith, and that this is what prompted God's acceptance of his gift. This acceptance was a testimony that Abel was counted as righteous in God's sight, but his brother was not. The phrase, he being dead yet speaketh, has become a figure of speech for someone's long lasting influence. In Abel's case, although he suffered an early death at the hands of his envious brother, his example of faith lives on as an example and inspiration to God's people. His life had an eternal value and purpose. Enoch, Hebrews chapter 11, verses 5 through 6. Because of his great faith, Enoch received the mysterious blessing of not experiencing death. Genesis chapter 5, verse 24 reports that Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. The term translated in Hebrews means to transfer, to remove from one place to another. In the midst of his life, he was taken to be in the presence of God, with whom he had already been walking so closely. Only by faith can a person please God, as Enoch did. Hebrews 11 and 6 explains the indispensability of faith. Enoch's life illustrates the life of faith that should be evident in all of God's people. He is said to have walked with God, So we know that he possessed the two crucial components of faith that this verse says are at the heart of a relationship with him. We must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who seek him. Since Enoch had fellowship with God, he certainly believed that God existed. True knowledge of God is more than merely an intellectual acknowledgement of a divine being. It is an experiential knowledge of the one who has revealed himself in his word. The second crucial belief is that God rewards those who seek him. The fact that Enoch continued in his fellowship with God is evidence that he was anticipating the blessings that God promises to those who are dedicated and passionate about their desire to know him. Noah, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 7. One of the most widely known figures from the Bible, Noah demonstrated his faith by building a huge sea vessel and building it inland when there was not yet any sign that it was needed. He believed what God told him. His faith provided him with the evidence of things not seen. Abraham, Hebrews chapter 11, verses 8 through 10. Considering that Abraham is often regarded as the father of the faithful, it is not surprising that the author of Hebrews made a more extended study of his example of faith. God commanded him to leave his homeland of Ur in southeastern Mesopotamia and travel to a land many hundreds of miles away. Incredibly, when he set out, he was not even sure where he was going. He went only with the promise that God was going to give him an inheritance, many blessings, and the honor of becoming a blessing to the whole world. Abraham's faith would be tested again and again. When he got to the place where God wanted him to go, he did not immediately see much evidence that the promised land was going to be his. Hebrews 11 and 9 says he sojourned in the land, meaning that he lived as a stranger there. He was an alien who did not feel at home among the people he found in Canaan, people who had no intention of giving up what belonged to them. Much time passed, and Abraham continued to have a generally nomadic existence. He lived in tents or tabernacles, a striking symbol of the fact that he had no real home at this point. The passage of time is highlighted by the fact that first Isaac and then Jacob, who themselves were in line to be heirs of God's covenant and would be singled out for their faith in this chapter, arrived on the scene, and the situation did not seem to change. Jacob was 15 when Abraham died. During all this time, Abraham never formally owned any land except the parcel he bought for his family's burial. We also cannot forget how Abraham's faith was tested when God asked him to sacrifice Isaac, the child of promise. Yet Abraham trusted God and had faith that he could even raise his son from the dead. Sarah or Sarah, Hebrews chapter 11, verses 11 through 13. Biblical scholars disagree about whether the original Greek of this verse makes Abraham's or Sarah's faith the main focus. Whichever side is correct, it surely is not unimportant that Sarah is mentioned here. It is true that Sarah did not respond very well when first informed that she was to have a child, but she was around 90 years old, well past the age of bearing children. Despite her initial response, Sarah must be commended for her growth in faith and willingness to trust God with the seemingly impossible. Because of the faith of both Abraham and Sarah, abundant life sprang forth from those as good as dead. Abraham and Sarah were indeed as good as dead as far as a reasonable hope of having a family was concerned, but God is not limited in what he can bring to pass. These all of Hebrews 11:13 refers to everyone mentioned thus far in the chapter, including Abel, Noah, Abraham, and Sarah. The promises include not only the ones given to Abraham, but also to the others. The patriarchs did not live to experience the fulfillment of what had been promised, but their faith remained strong until the day of their death. It was as if they could envision the reality of God's promised kingdom off in the distance. This is what they lived for and longed for, and this is what sustained them. As an old song goes, this world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. Every person of faith recognizes that we are spiritual pilgrims on the way to better things. The patriarchs of old did not let themselves get too attached to what the world has to offer. Let us follow their example, living by faith for what will truly last. This world is not our home. We are called to live in the world, but we are not of the world. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe and may God bless.